Hello, everyone, and welcome to this session. Thank you so much for coming over so early in the day. My name is Dani Sanchez, and as you can see, I'm not from India. I'm actually from Spain. I have been building games for 21 years, 22, I think. And what I wanted to share here today with you guys is all the lessons I've learned that I think could apply very well to India. So if you are an aspiring game developer, an indie game developer, if you're thinking about setting up a studio, or even if you want to become a publisher or a fund, I think these lessons apply to you. So I hope you enjoyed the presentation. It's about 50 minutes. And again, I'm going to be later here, so if you have any questions, we can keep talking the conversation. So that's me. I've spent most of my life in this industry, basically most of it at Sony. I worked at PlayStation for 12 years. All the way from PlayStation 3, 4, 5, PSP, PS Vita, PlayStation VR. So I've seen everything PlayStation. Don't ask me about Nintendo because that's the enemy. But basically Sony, I know everything. Then from there, I worked on Pokemon Go at Niantic, Walking Dead. Then I moved to Warner Brothers. My studio was actually acquired by Tencent, the Chinese giant. If you see me turn around, it's because I'm not seeing my slide, okay? So I need to make sure I'm in sync. And I have been an advisor to governments on video game initiatives and policy, China, New Zealand, some governments. And then what brings me here today is I'm actually the new head of gaming at DNEG. You know DNEG, the visual effects powerhouse here in India. And we are going to be setting up a gaming division. And so I'm going to spearhead that effort to turn DNEG into a gaming powerhouse. It's already a content production powerhouse, but I would love to turn it into a gaming powerhouse as well. And also, the reason why I'm here is because I come from an experience in China with Tencent for the last 4 years, and I see patterns here in India that are very similar to what made China explode back in the day, like 6, 7 years ago, such as a huge internal market, appetite to build games locally. So what I wanted to do here is basically give you a survival guide. So if you're a developer and you want to be a developer, this is things that you should watch out for. Think about this. Imagine we are in D-Day. You know D-Day? You know, the landing in Normandy, 1944, right? And you want to survive? The best trick to survive is to speak with a soldier who has been there before, right? So if you could go there on the second day and ask, hey, where are the machine guns? Hey, where are the bombers? That's what I'm going to do here. Okay? What I'm going to try to do is reduce your chances of failure and increase your chances of success by telling you things I've learned through the years, okay? It's about 15, 20 advices. So, you know, keep an eye on this. You know, you may take photos, and in the end, there's my email. So if anyone wants the presentation, just hit me up later. I'll share it with you right away, okay? So don't worry about it, okay? First thing, if you're a startup, choose your founders carefully, okay? I've learned this the hard way. Changing founders is very, very, very hard to the point of impossible in a startup. And most startups, if you don't choose your founders wisely, and basically you decide that you don't want to keep going with that guy or that girl that you thought was a good idea, most likely the company is going to be destroyed. Okay, so the first thing is make sure your founding team is rock solid. Never, ever, ever build, I know you will, never build companies with your friends. That's not how it goes. Okay, make sure the core roles are well covered, like, oh, we need a lead programmer, we need a lead artist, we need a producer. You know, those are the roles you want to build. It's not so much like, oh yeah, this guy is funny, let's do a company with him, because then once the company goes under, you're going to lose the founder and the friend. Okay, so make sure you choose your founders very carefully. Okay, in my experience, I've never been able to change founders in a company except by breaking up the company. Okay, so first advice, founders, essential. Be careful with that. My second advice, one thing I've discovered in the gaming business is that basically we're an industry, we're a strange industry, okay? I have an older brother, he works in banking, but you know what? He's not a fan of banks. He works in banking. So gaming is a weird industry because we are nurtured by our own fans. So typically game developers are fans of games, which means that they don't care about the business side, they care more about the creative side, okay? So the first thing you need to do is turn into a businessman, understand cash flow, understand money in, money out, because at the end of the day, we don't do this as a hobby, we don't do this because it's fun, we do this to pay the mortgage, to make money, to create a living, okay? So the second advice is please, please stop the mentality of, oh yeah, this is some friends who are in a garage, yada, yada, yada. No, this is a business. Make sure you treat it as such, that you understand your cash flow as a studio, or you will not last very long. My third advice is always be in pitching mode. You guys don't realize how slow it is to get a deal in this industry. I'm going to give you some numbers, okay? My fastest deal, which was at Sony, took 3.5 months to complete, from the first conversation to the moment ink hits the paper and we got, the first transfer. 3.5 months. My slowest deal took 1.5 years. Okay? So what that means is you cannot be like, oh yeah, now we're doing great. Let's stop pitching and we will pitch next year. No, that's not how it works. You're always pitching. The only successful companies are the companies with too much work. Okay, so if you are like, oh yeah, we're safe, don't worry, the project is going. When the project's over, we'll begin pitching again. Sure, welcome to your disappearance in 6 months down the line. Okay, so make sure you're always in pitching mode. There's a million events, such as, Game Connection, GDC, there's a Game Connection in Asia. So always be aware of places where you can be looking for new clients, that you can be pitching new ideas. It could be your own projects, it could be external projects. We'll talk about that in a second, but always be selling, okay? You're a salesman. I've met a lot of developers who are extremely brilliant in the technical side, on the creative side, but they don't know how to sell, And at the end of the day, remember what I said on the previous slide. This is a business. You need to be selling your projects constantly, okay? I don't know if I'm speaking too quickly. Is it good? Good so far? Okay. So I'll keep going. Okay. The fourth advice is you need to become a multi-lane studio as quickly as you can. Let me explain what I mean by that. Typically, a studio, especially small studios, they are like, oh, we are 10 people. We're working on the game being one game, and then, oh, we finish the game, we do another game. Okay. What that does, in terms of your cash flow, it generates valleys and peaks, because basically, oh, here's game 1. Now we begin pitching. Here's game 2. And in the middle, there's this thing we call the valley of death, because basically there's no cash flow. Okay? Once you begin having multiple projects side by side, you become multi-lane, as I'm saying here. What it happens is that you interleave the revenue of one game with another game on lane 2, So as quickly as you can, turn into a multi-lane studio as a tool for stability, okay? In one of my companies, we became multi-lane with a team size of 16 people. So we were not big. And with 16 people, we were already doing 2 projects. And you know what? That made us successful, and that made us sustainable, So again, multi-lane projects is the way to go. Single-lane projects, extremely risky, okay? You're putting basically all the eggs in just one basket, which is the game. If that's successful, great. If it's not, you're done, okay? Most of the studios I've seen close down. Honestly, they've closed down during this valley of death that I was mentioning. They finish one project, they're too busy wrapping it up, they're not pitching, they face the valley of death of, let's say, 3 to 6 months with no cash flow, done. And that's a disaster, okay? So again, multi-lane studio as soon as you can. If you're multi-lane, of course, you'll tell me, hey, Danny, but we don't have the bandwidth to be creating so many ideas. Let's say I was talking with a developer a moment ago, and he was showing me a brilliant game, a horror idea, right? And that's his brain idea, right? Then the problem is, what do I do? Because, of course, we only have one idea now, which is this game, and that's the game we're doing. Okay, the way to be multi-lane and not break your brain apart in terms of creativity is to combine internal and external projects. So let's say you're doing your internal project, which is, I don't know, a horror game. What you're going to do is you're going to begin pitching yourself as a service company to do a second game that maybe doesn't need to be your own idea, so it takes less brain power from your creative team, and it's just work to keep the wheels spinning. You see what I mean? So basically, what you do is you combine, let's say, your own brand, your own IP. Both things, they serve a purpose, okay? So when you're building your own brand, your own game, you own that IP. So if that IP grows, you know what? It's owned by you. Fantastic, I own that one IP that we sold to Sony, and that IP made $400 million. So owning an IP is good business. Of course it is. But what we call work for hire, which is basically taking in mercenary work, it actually acts as a stabilizer for your studio. You know, basically you're doing this game, which is your creative brainchild. You're super excited about it. But then on the side, maybe you're doing a project for, you know, I don't know, the cricket league, or you're doing a project for whatever it is. Doesn't matter. It brings money, and it solves the problem that I was telling before about the valley of death. You know, you're combining internal and external revenue, making your studio more sustainable. Okay? Sixth advice, get an agent. Of course, you're saying from my presentation that you are going to become a jack of all trades, because you're, I'm, you know, designing a game, and at the same time I need to be pitching, and at the same time I need to be taking care of the cash flow. It's impossible to be everything. You would be like Superman, right? What is the way to be Superman and still make it alive? Get an agent, okay? There are people out there who can look for projects for you. You know? So as soon as you have a little bit of a reputation, you know, you get an agent. If anyone needs agents later, just hit me up and I will tell you the names of a few ones, good ones. And basically, they are going to be seeking projects for you. So for example, if you are like, hey, my team's expertise is in Unreal Engine, okay, fine. You give them a profile of the studio. You say, hey, you know, we are based in, you know, Bangalore. We are 30 people, and, you know, we have availability of, let's say, 15 of those people for all of 2026. Can you begin shopping around? And he's going to be doing the pitching for you, okay? And so the idea is that the agent will actually bring you projects for you to accept if you're interested. And those projects, typically, they're going to be work for hire, but they're going to be stabilizers for your studio. You know, a lot of the projects I've had, which had been, you know, very good sources of revenue for us, were actually brought by agents. And I'm talking multi-million-dollar projects brought by agents. How do agents work? Typically, they take a commission. You know, the commission that the agent takes is going to be, it depends, you know. The bigger the project, the lower the commission, because it's a percentage, of course. So if the project is huge, an agent can take a cut of, let's say, maybe 2-3%, all the way to something like 7-8% in some cases, you know, because the project is smaller. But again, agents is a very good way to free up hours, because basically you hire the guy, you say, hey, go crazy, and he's going to go there, pitch your team, and look for work for your guys while you are working on your project, okay? Again, you don't need to do everything yourself, okay? Don't worry about that. Number 7, learn to kill projects, okay? And that's really painful, and you know that this is when the tears come and we all get super sad. Remember this, 1 in every 4 projects in this industry gets canceled, okay? It's a reality, live with it, okay? For many reasons. I'm gonna give you a few, you know? First reason, let's say you're working on a title and a very similar title comes along. It may be a good moment to say, you know what, you know, it's over, you know, because we had this game about, I don't know, doctors, you know, and, you know, there's super big IP about doctors is coming along. It's over, you know. A second reason is the project is not going as expected, you know, like, hey, it seemed fun on paper. Once we're prototyping it, you know what, it's not fun anymore. There could be a platform issue. For example, you know, the Nintendo just announced the Switch 2. You know, maybe you're working on a game for Switch 1, and you think, this project does not make sense, because for a platform issue, we need to cancel the project. So there's a myriad of reasons why projects don't make sense anymore. Typically, one of the most common ones is you're working for a client, and the client changed his mind. That's another option, you know. Let's say, for example, you know, you're doing a project for a publisher, and that publisher, for some reason, needs to cancel the project, okay? Learn to live with this. It's not a drama. You know, there's ways to cover this in your contract so that you get covered if the project gets canceled. You get like a severance, what's called a kill fee. A kill fee is a severance payment, you know, to make sure, you know, you don't go down the drain if the project gets canceled, but live with cancellations, you know. The worst thing you can do is keep working on what I call a dead corpse. You know, a dead corpse is a project that should have been canceled. It's not canceled. You're dragging it like with the illusion that it's going, and it's not, you know. Remember this. Think about this. What you need to be thinking always is, okay, next week, is this project the best use of our time? Or maybe the best use of our time is to do something else. If you have doubt, kill the project, okay? If you're not sure that this project is the right project now for the studio, kill it, do something else, okay? Doing games is very time-consuming. Committing to something that you know it's bound for failure is a very bad business decision, okay? Of course, build a network. This is the example. I recycle the same ideas. I'm not so creative. Sorry about that. So the idea I said before about the beach, right? It's here again. You don't need to know everything. You need to know someone who knows the things that you don't know. So be surrounded by people who can advise you, ideally for free, and if not, you pay them, okay? Lawyers, finance people, be surrounded by a network of advisors, ideally old people. And I say old people putting myself as an example. I know I look 16, but I'm 50, okay? So I've been doing games all my life. But basically, advisors have seen things you have not, and they know how to react in some situations that basically you don't know how to react to, My advisors, I'm 50, I have people who have been in the industry for longer than I have. I know it's hard to believe, but it's true. People who have been longer in this industry than myself. And typically, when I have a problem, I always have a phone number to call to. I have lawyers, I have, strategy people that we can go for advice whenever needed, So be social. Game developers, we are stupid because we're extremely closed. Typically, oh yeah, we talk with our friends on the studio and we don't go out. Stupid, okay? Be social. Events like this can be a great way to actually hook up with people, get business cards, get LinkedIns, make friends. Because when you make friends, you have allies who can help you in times of trouble, whatever the trouble may be, okay? This is a funny one that I've learned through the years. Which is you need to distinguish between learning and obeying, which is not the same thing. Okay, so typically, you're going to be surrounded with people, and they're going to be yelling at you like, oh, Dani, you should do this. Oh, Dani, you should do that. Or, Dani, you should do whatever. Okay? The reality is, when the decision time comes, you're going to be alone. And it's going to be you making the decision. You know why? Because it's your studio, not their studio. Okay, so my advice through the years has been, keep a very open mind, listen to everyone, and then basically tell them to shut up because you need to make the decision of what's going to happen, okay? For a reason. Think about this. If you fail, how do you want to fail? Knowing that at least it was your decision, or knowing that you failed because you were stupid and you listened to someone you shouldn't have? You see what I mean? Right? So the idea is, the way I look at things is, sure, everybody's entitled to an opinion. A lot of opinions are really, really useful. At the end of the day, it's kind of like, okay, sure, I listen to you, I respect you. Now, because it's my company, and at the end of the day, I'm going to be the one laying off the team if the thing is the wrong decision. Now, I'm going to be making the decision of whatever we're going to do. Okay, so distinguish. This is an industry, reminds me a little bit, in Spain, where I'm from, football is very popular. Okay, football is the sport, right? I'm from Barcelona, okay? So everybody has opinions about football. Like, oh yeah, you should do this, and the coach should do this, and they should fire this guy because he's idle and fat or whatever, right? Everybody talks about it, but at the end of the day, this is a business, and when this is a business, revenue is generated, people get fired if the decisions are not the correct ones. So make sure you make people understand, hey, at the end of the day, I will be making the decisions because this is an important business, okay? Am I going too fast? Good? Super. Thank you. This is an easy one, okay? Have a lawyer, okay? Yeah, I don't know how it is in India, but in the West, where I'm from, basically, the industry is dominated by creatives. Creatives, like, oh, yeah, I'm a designer, I'm a writer, I'm an art director. And then when the time to actually sign a deal comes, people make absolutely terrible mistakes. And I've seen it again and again and again and again. A very good friend of mine, actually, he had to shut down the studio because he signed a clause in an agreement that he shouldn't have signed 4 years ago. And now, because of a snowball effect, that clause had backfired and he has to shut the studio. And it's funny because 4 years ago, when he showed me the agreement, I said, be careful with clause 16. That clause is going to be dangerous down the line. Okay, and that happened. Okay, so a lawyer may seem unneeded because maybe you think, oh, you know what, we're just for friends, not doing anything important. No, it is important. Okay, so always have, one of the phone numbers you need to have on your cell phone from day one is the phone number of a lawyer. And I'm talking about a game-specific lawyer. I don't know what is the landscape of lawyers here in India for games, but any lawyer with experience on IP and on media is going to be a good advisor for a gaming studio. This is not different from a movie. This is not different from lawyers who have experience doing, for example, TV. It's the same kind of material. We deal with IP, we deal with rights, we deal with cancellations, we deal with milestones. It's kind of like the bread and butter of this type of lawyers, you know? And a lawyer, when you talk with him, you know, he's going to seem expensive, but honestly, it's going to be the cheapest money you'll spend in your life, okay? So because I think we're good on time, I'm going to tell you an anecdote, okay, to make this a little bit more entertaining. You know, again, I spent 12 of my years at Sony working on a studio that was actually working for Sony, right? And then first time I went to Sony, honestly, I was scared, as you can imagine, as hell. You know, it was Sony. It was like this big, and we were a studio of 16 people from Spain, like, oh, you know, good morning, we want to sell you a game, okay? So because I was really scared, I thought, you know what, let's go with a lawyer, okay? So this was Sony UK. So what we did is we got a directory of all the studios, and this is a good trick, by the way. Remember this trick, okay? If you're sleeping, wake up, because this is a good trick, okay? So what we did is we did a list of all the studios that we knew that had worked for Sony, okay? And then, like in a cold door manner, we called each one of them and asked, which lawyer represents you? Because we're the new kid in town, we're going to be working with Sony, and we want a lawyer that has experience dealing with Sony, okay? And so, of course, they said, oh, this firm, this firm, this firm. Okay, as you can imagine, my next phone call was to those law firms saying, hey, we want you guys to represent us because we know you've represented people working for Sony. And by the way, if there's anyone from Sony here in the audience, my relationship with Sony was amazing. That's the reason why I made 7 games in a row for them, you know? But of course, it was kind of those scenarios of, you know, small fish versus mega huge fish, you know? So here we are, you know, a bunch of kids from Barcelona, Spain, getting on a flight, EasyJet, flying to London. And then at the airport, we get, you know, the lawyer. And, you know, it was like, he was like twice my size. And most likely his outfit costed as much as my house, you know? But when we reached Sony, he knew what to say. And yeah, we left the place with a deal. You see what I mean? So a lawyer is absolutely priceless. No matter how much you spend, trust me, it's going to be worth it. You know, if the lawyer becomes too expensive for you, you can always talk about some sort of like structured deal, like, you know, getting some sort of like a hit fee. You know, like, oh, you know, try to charge a little bit less because you were a new studio. But if we get a deal, you get a commission on the deal. Some structure like that could work. You know, but again, lawyers, in my experience, they become cheap. And they can be very expensive if you don't have one, you know? Here's an advice that's actually for waves, okay? And this is something I'm repeating again and again and again and again all this week, okay? Go local, okay? Every kid here who has approached me here on the you know, outside, it's like, oh yeah, you know, we want to do Call of Duty. It's like, no, that's stupid, okay? You're sitting in a 1.4 billion people country. Are you telling me that you're going to try to get outside of it? That's the most stupid thing you could do, you know? Hey, you have a key advantage. You know India. The studios in the US don't, you know? Go here and then conquer, okay? Let me tell you, this is something I said yesterday. I had a meeting yesterday with the minister here for Maharashtra, and, you know, my only intervention in the meeting was about this. But again, do games focused on your culture, about your world. One of the biggest games of last year, think about this. I'm sure you've heard about this one if you are gamers. It's a game called Balatro, okay? Balatro, it's a card game. Super simple game, done by one guy. It made over $1 billion in revenue, okay? What is popular in India? Card games, right? Do card games for India. Cheap to make, really cheap to make, amazing source of revenue. You know, maybe you think, oh yeah, but that's not my passion project because my passion project is to do a shooter and sell it in the US. Not gonna happen, at least not gonna happen in the short term. You know why? Because they have their own games, and you're gonna be competing against the big guns who have been doing this for 20 years. The team doing Call of Duty has been doing Call of Duty for 25 years. It's not gonna be easy to displace them. But if you begin with India and you conquer India first, same story, right? Don't invent. I know this, all the creatives in the room are now hating me, okay? Copy. Every game out there is a very good friend of mine, actually. He just retired because he's like older than me. Very good friend of mine he's a vice president at Electronic Arts. Okay, and so he's got this mantra that he says any innovation is 85% of the same and 15% of something new, and that is absolutely true. Okay, if you look at GTA, you know, we were talking about GTA moments ago, right? Oh yeah, every GTA is super innovative. It's not. Look at GTA 1 and GTA 2. I'm not saying GTA 3. Look at GTA 1 and GTA 2. All the ideas they're doing today were there already 25 years ago. You know, look at Call of Duty. Call of Duty is a rehash of a game that existed before called Medal of Honor. Okay, every game out there is a copy of something else. And the advantage here, well, I gave here some examples. Okay, the advantage here is that you have a very distinctive culture here in India. So what you can do is say, oh yeah, sure. What is working out there? I just gave an example, right? Balatro. You know, please download this game. It will open your eyes. Balatro, okay? It's on mobile and it's on everything, okay? Take a look at that and think, what would this be if this was Indian? Take Hades. Hades is an indie super hit from a couple years ago. Hades, H-A-D-E-S, okay? What would that be if that was made for India? You know, adapt ideas that are working something else, you know? We see that on TV all the time. We see that on movies all the time, you know. Do the same with games. And then if you do it right, the game will feel innovative, but it will be rooted in something that's solid that, you know, that is actually a great idea. You know, every game I've done, I'm not going to tell you the trick, but every game I've done, I took inspiration from someone else. Yeah, I copied, you know, and then you add your own sauce, and people go like, wow, how creative. And you're like, yeah, sure, you know, yeah, it's super creative. But it's actually an evolution of previous concepts, okay? Another thing that I've learned here in India, again, this is my second trip. I joined the company in January. Another trip I've learned in India is if you want to be successful here, go mobile, okay? Mobile is the way to go. Okay, I know the dream of all the developers. Oh yeah, big screen, beautiful graphics, PC, console, Steam. Don't, okay? You have a ton of mobile installed base here in India, and that is the way to go. Because honestly, you're not going to build the audience. The audience needs to exist already. You know, if you build, let me tell you a fun story. A good friend of mine, many years ago. He had this idea to do a football game. You know, nothing wrong with that. Nothing wrong with that. You know, but he has this idea to do a football game, and he got a deal with Microsoft for Xbox, okay? If you know anything about football culture, you should see already that this is not looking good, and I'll explain why. This is 15 years ago, okay? So 15 years ago, where was football popular? Europe and Latin America, okay? Where was Xbox popular? The US, you know? So yeah, he had an amazing game that no one bought because he had the game on the wrong platform, right? So if you build a game for console, like, oh yeah, let's do a game about, you know, something super Indianly relevant, you know? But let's say you do a card game, you know, with heroes from Indian history. That would be a great idea, okay? And you do it for console. Congratulations, you've just thrown away a lot of money. No one is going to buy it because the audience does not exist. And if you're thinking, oh yeah, but we will build the audience, not going to happen. It's not that easy. You know, Indians are not going to begin buying PlayStations just because you say so. You know, so go where they already are. Where are they? On phones, typically Androids. That's our studies. You know, the vast majority of the Indian population has access to an Android device. You know, so think of, okay, what can be an amazing experience to be played on an Android worth around $400? You know, there's a ton of games that you can do there and just live within the constraints of your audience, you know, because again, if you're like, oh, I'm going to be super creative, I'm going to do this, but there's no audience, what's the point? You know, as I've been saying in all the presentation, we do this as a business, not because it's fun. If I was here just because it's fun, I would be doing something else. I do this because this is my life. Okay? Easy one, okay? I mean, you know, we in the West are so stupid that we need to invent superheroes. You know, like, oh yeah, Spider-Man, super cool. And, you know, whatever, Ant-Man and whatever man, you know? And then when we want to be creative, it's like, oh, Batwoman, super creative. Okay, you guys are sitting on at least 3,000 years of mythology, that it's largely untapped. Largely untapped. You have sources of stories which are absolutely mind-blowing. I'm just beginning to deep dive into them, and it's like, hey, this is the kind of material that actually becomes blockbusters. And be careful, because many of you may thinking, yeah, but it's not the right brands. Now I would say a curse word, but I will not, because I'm trying to be very polite. But that's a very stupid answer. Okay? Let me explain what I mean. Up until 3 years ago, everybody thought that a brand called Barbie, remember Barbie? Okay, was done, was finished. It was absolutely it was a gender disaster, because it was perceived as very kind of like old from the 50s. The female standard was kind of like absolutely changed from what it is today. And then comes a director, Greta Gerwig, and she does the right approach on the material. And now Barbie, I think it made, I don't know, $3 billion in revenue. And now they're doing, of course, Barbie 2 and Barbie 3. And if I was Margot Robbie, I wouldn't be making any plans for the next 10 years, because she's going to be making Barbie until the end of times, right? So tell Indian stories. I mean, you do this in India, and a fun story appears, something interesting to tap into. And it doesn't really need to be only that story. You can take that story as a starting point into something else. For example, Marvel has been doing a horrible job doing movies in the last generations of films. But for example, there was this TV show it was a TV show based on Marvel called Ms. Marvel, which was actually a story of Marvel, and it was actually set in India, And it was absolutely mind-blowing, We're dying for new content. We're tired to see the same guys on a suit jump and do the hero pose, So go for Indian stories, Again, as I said, the biggest game of last year is a game called Black Myth Wukong, which is based on a myth from China called The Journey to the West, which actually The Journey to the West is kind of like a ripoff of an Indian story, okay? So again, appreciate your heritage, your legacy, and use it to build games. This is an easy one, okay? Do you have $10 million? Most likely not, right? Okay, so go small. That's it. We can move on to the next slide. Now, really, the idea is, at the end of the day, any project, be it a video game, be it a movie, be it whatever, it's a form of validation. We devote time to build something, and then the market validates that something. It tells us if we did a good job or not. Maybe the market says, you know what, Danny, I'm sorry, your idea was a disaster, and, it doesn't work, Okay, so if it's going to be a disaster or if it's going to be a success, I guess we all agree that the sooner we know, the better, because, at least you've spent little money. Okay? So in terms of game development, small is always better than big. Okay? Anything you do, if it can be made smaller, cheaper, better. Release quickly, understand quickly what's working, what's not working. Now when I began in this industry many years ago, there was no Twitch, there was no YouTube, there was no all that kind of things that we have today. And it's actually way less risky now, because you have a million ways to validate your concept really quickly. Basically, you can put out a demo, for example, on Steam. You can put, like an early access. There was a system called Greenlight as well. You can do a Kickstarter. Kickstarter can be an amazing way to validate the project. Hey, you put it on Kickstarter. If it kind of like sticks and you feel people are enjoying it, great, you keep going. If not, you kill it and you do something else. So again, try to validate things quickly. Okay? A game like GTA has a development cost. I'm going to tell you the development cost of 5. Development cost of 5, not including marketing, is around 600 million pounds. Okay? That's extremely risky. Okay? My first project many years ago was made on a budget of around 40,000. That's beautiful. That's good. Go small, and slowly make it. One thing we're seeing, a very recent trend, is that actually this idea of going small has another benefit, which is, honestly, many times the audience will build the game for you. In other words, you put out your demo, and people will say, oh yeah, you know what, this is great, this is terrible, great, remove this, keep going with this. You see what I mean? So many times you see that the game that ends in the stores, it's actually kind of like a co-creation between the team and the audience that have helped shape the future of that product. That has happened in many games. Games that started as premium and then they became free to play. Games that changed camera angles. I mean, many things that can evolve during development. Be ready to do that, and the best way is to start small. Another one. You'll hear okay, there's a difference between reputation and money. That should be very obvious, but just in case, okay? So a lot of people are very creative, like, oh yeah, I will build an art game. Like one of these super arty games with amazing visuals that don't sell. Okay, don't do that, okay? So don't be wowed by awards, by reputation. The only thing that matters at the end of the day is the money that you can spend on a supermarket, right? So careful, because in my experience, many of those arty games that win awards and people talk about them, but once you look at the numbers, the rankings, they go like, you know what, they made nothing in terms of money, Many times you need to be aware that some of those arty games are funded by a publisher just because of a reputation, like a marketing campaign, not to make money, but you need to make money because you're going to be owning the studio. You see what I mean? So always go for things that make money. Think about the players, not so much the media. I'm sorry, there's any journalist here. I don't hate you by definition, but the reality is that many times we change our developments just to please, the awards and the reputation and the media, and that's the wrong way to go, okay? Because that will not pay the bills. What will pay the bills is selling 1 million copies, basically, okay? This should be an obvious one in any industry, but it's a games industry. People don't think about money, and that's an obvious mistake. Okay, I just I tell a lot of stories, but this is a story from actually 2 weeks ago. Some friends of mine, they shut down their studio, and basically they shut down the studio. You're gonna laugh, but a publisher basically didn't accept the project because it was like, what is the business model? How much are you gonna sell? What is the revenue going to be? And they were like, okay, wrong answer, done. Think about revenue early. So I'm showing lots of games. For example, here at Waves, I think since I came to Waves 2 days ago, I've seen about 15 games, 15, okay? Do you know the only thing people didn't tell me in none of those presentations? How many copies they think they will sell. And that's the only thing that you should be thinking about, If you're doing a horror game, the first thing you need to tell me is, oh, this is a horror game. By the way, our benchmark is this game, this game, this game, this game. On the average, they've sold 500,000 copies. So we think our return on investment is going to be 4x based on a budget of whatever. That is the way to go, okay? Even before you write the first line of code, keep in mind, how much will it sell for? How many copies do you think you'll sell? Which are the other games that you're basing your assumptions in terms of your analysis, so you can come to me or anyone and say, yeah, don't worry. We're quite certain we're going to make a revenue of 5 million based on a budget of 800,000, and that means a ROI, return on investment of 5x or whatever it is. Think about revenue even before you begin designing the game. Again, lots of fantastic games out there that actually make no financial sense. I have 2 more, I think, 2 or 3 more. You're not alone, okay? I think the Ministry of Maharashtra has done an amazing job putting this together. I'm sure you guys are making lots of friends here in the event, and that is the way to go. Talk to people, be social, okay? I hope most of you guys leave this event knowing more people than what you came here knowing, and that is really the way to go, okay? And yeah, final advice, enjoy the ride. This is a really, really fun industry. I've been doing this all my life. Honestly, it's risky, it's scary, it's very rewarding because at the end of the day, think about this. People give us the most precious thing that they have, which is their time. Every time a player does double click on your game, he's actually going on a journey that you have created. And that's an amazing feeling. Okay, so enjoy the ride, don't stress, it will be fine. And if it's not, you know what? You'll learn a lot of things along the way. Thank you. By the way, that's my email, okay? Until I get my final email, that's the one, okay? So if anyone wants a presentation, please hit me up. I'll send it to you. It's on Google, okay? And I'm going to be here. So I don't know if we have time for questions from the audience. Yes, we do? Yeah? Okay, so we have 5 minutes for questions. So if anyone has a question, there's a hand there. So if someone can go with a microphone. Oh, yeah.
Hello. Hey, thanks for the presentation.
It's quite low. Speak loudly.
Thanks for the presentation. It was really great. I have a question regarding the one that you said about multi-lane studio, right? So you said you had a 16-member team and you just converted that to a multi-lane studio. We have a 35 members team. It's a VFX studio in Chennai. But we have 4 projects in hand, and I'm still not sure how to allot the workforce for each project at this point of time.
So typically, again, you need to think about a studio like an investment fund, okay? It's an investment fund, you know? You have people, that's your asset, you know? And what you're going to do is you're going to be combining different patterns of risk, you know? So if you're doing, you said you're doing VFX? Yeah. So you can use VFX as a way to, you know, let's say you have 4 lanes, you know? 3 lanes are reserved for VFX, and then you begin doing a small game project, you know? And so this one is beginning to generate revenue. Again, it's kind of like, it's a diversification strategy, you know? So you diversify. That's, for example, the same thing we're going to be doing, you know? You need to have let's say you have a foot on stable ground, which is your current business, and slowly you enter the new ground, which is in this case, games, you know? Don't put everyone on games, of course, because that would be too risky, you know? But you can do a diversification effort, you know? That would be my approach.
Thank you for that.
Thank you. I see hands over there. Again, remember, if you don't get time to ask your question, don't worry, I'm going to be around here later, okay? Yeah, go ahead.
Hello, sir. Good morning.
Thank you.
My name is Priyansh, and thank you very much for your presentation. Well, sir, you talked about teams and all. My question is regarding my own thing. Like, I am a solo developer, and I have done around 80% of the work. The game is on Steam for wishlisting and all. I also went through your presentation and have followed many points which you mentioned. So I wanted advice regarding, like, how should I proceed further now?
Okay, so typically, if you want my advice, you know, now it's the easiest time in my career, at least, to actually promote the game, because there's many ways to do that using streamers, influencers, etc. So that's what I would do. For example, yesterday I was in one of the presentations here with the minister, and there was several people who were actually content creators. You know, back in the day, you needed like a super big marketing campaign to you know, fund your marketing, all that kind of stuff. Now all you need is one content creator actually believing in you. You know, let me tell you a story. I don't know if you guys, this game was very popular in Europe. I don't know if it came here to India, but do you know the game Among Us? Yeah? Good. Okay, so Among Us, no one cared about Among Us, you know? No one. Until there was one streamer in the US who actually saw the game and thought, you know what, this seems like a good game for me to play with my friends, streamers, and that's when the game took off. On a 0 marketing budget, you know? So one advice that I could have added, and I did it, I'm sorry, is design for streaming, okay? So when you begin the project, always think, we're in the streaming era, you know? How do I make my game so that people want to stream it, you know? For example, make it funny, make it social, make it something. I mean, look at Twitch. I don't know how popular is Twitch here in India, but look at what people are watching on Twitch, you know? And try to make a game that works well on that format, because if it does, you have the most powerful ally, which are the content creators. Those are the ones who are going to be talking about your game, and you know, all you need is one of them sharing your game, and you're off, you know? I think, yes, my pleasure.
Hey, hi,
hi.
Good morning. I'm Kirtana. So I have 2 questions. The first question is that I got covered a bit. The craziest marketing campaign that you have witnessed for a game.
The craziest one?
The craziest marketing campaign.
Okay, Minecraft. One developer, you know, this fat guy from Finland called Notch, you know, and he just began talking about the game himself on, you know, Twitter and places like this. And 4 years later, I think, he sold the company to Microsoft for I don't know how much. Minecraft is the poster child of something really crazy that no one thought could ever happen. If you look at Minecraft, the day before Minecraft exploded, I show you Minecraft and you would say, this is way too hardcore, this is way too complicated, it will never work. And then, boom. By the way, Minecraft, in case someone is not aware, is the biggest PC game ever, done by one person, okay?
And the second question goes on. You told that before even you start designing or developing the game, choose how do you make revenue or how much you'll make.
Yep.
So what are the factors that we should have in mind before deciding it?
So basically what I would do is now there's a lot of free sources of data. For example, you have a website called SteamDB. I'm talking about games for PC, okay? So you can go on SteamDB, you take any game, and you can do a market analysis, Now we have another super powerful ally, and this is not a joke, okay? It's ChatGPT, okay? ChatGPT has an extremely rich database when it comes to gaming, So what you can do, and trust me, you can do this, you get your GDD, your game design document, you feed it to ChatGPT, and you say, hey, can you find me 3 or 4 games which are similar to the kind of stuff I'm doing? Some of them, maybe you even don't know them because ChatGPT is very deep in terms of the knowledge. And then it will tell you, oh yeah, games A, B, C. And then you tell ChatGPT, okay, can you do me a comparison of my game compared to this game's? Can you give me sales data? Can you give me revenue data? And it's surprising how quickly you can build a very compelling presentation about your game from a business standpoint using ChatGPT. I'm not joking. In 2 hours of work with ChatGPT, you can have a very compelling business case to defend your project. Or the other way, if ChatGPT tells you, you know what, yeah, this game sold 10,000 copies, maybe your game is not such a good idea. Okay?
Thank you. Looking forward to connecting you.
Thank you. Oh, there's people over there.
Hello.
Hello.
Thank you for your talk.
By the way, you see me here just because my microphone is here, okay? That's where I hear you. Okay, go ahead.
Hey, we are a small indie Indian studio based in India, and I had a question regarding PC games. We love to build PC games. So let's say we are building a PC game which is like Hades with Indian gods.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So in your talk, you had a point like Indian audience is mainly based on mobile platforms.
Correct.
Right? So if I'm making a game which is like popular in West with Indian touch, will that actually work in India, or should we only target the Western audience?
Okay, got it. That's a very good question. Okay, so I'm going to make 2 points. First point, I said go mobile first, but in India, go PC second. Okay? So what you don't need to do is go console. There's no consoles here. Okay? But there's lots of PCs. Okay? So if you do PC, you'll be okay. The only thing I'm saying is that the ratio of PCs to mobile in India is like 6:1 or something like this. Okay? So always be on mobile. Okay? Which brings me to my second point. There's no reason why a Hades, because you're talking about a Hades, the kind of game, there's no reason why you cannot make a Hades on mobile. Okay? So Hades is on Switch, which is almost like a mobile. If I were you, I would make the game run on mobile. Are you running on a commercial engine?
Yeah, no, we are using Unity.
Unity, yeah, that's a commercial engine. Okay? Unity compiles to cell phones. You know? So make sure you support cell phones. Okay? And then to your last point, people are hungry for new content. The West is hungry for new content. So yeah, you can do a story based in India. The only thing I would do is take a look at other games that have done this. For example, again, as I said before, Black Myth Wukong is a very good example for you guys. And take a look at how they have presented their local culture with an international flair, Because what you don't want to do is a niche product that looks good only for Indian audiences. You want to have this international approach. So it can still be Indian, but it has to be Indian done in a westernized way so that you can actually break it into Europe, America, etc. So again, go mobile, keep your Indian roots, but make it with an international appeal.
Thank you so much. If you have 10 or 15 minutes, we are the finalists of a game jam.
Yeah.
We are showcasing a game over here.
I'll come.
Thank you so much.
Don't worry about it. There's a hand there. Okay, this is the final question, okay? So one more. Remember, I'm going to be around here, so if you need to talk to me, I'm here. Don't worry. And that's my email over there, okay?
Hello.
Yeah, hello.
I'm a student and a solopreneur. So my question is that if you make a new thing, maybe it a game or maybe it any other thing, like an Android app or Android game, the initial marketing, when you have nothing, no connection, not a very high budget, it's very tough. So how to break into market if you have like very less money?
Okay, so
But you have a good product.
yeah. So my advice is sometimes one of the best ways to actually get an audience, if it's impossible for you to get marketing, is attach yourself to something. Maybe that app can be branded by someone else. I'm going to give an example just for the sake of example, okay? Maybe you can approach Coca-Cola, so your brand is actually Coca-Cola, and they have the audience, So it doesn't matter if you don't have the audience, as long as you can connect with someone who does. So in my example, Coca-Cola is a very extreme case, but maybe you can make your app branded something, even if it's a smaller thing, maybe it's a university, maybe it's whatever, so that they bring the audience to you, Always think about this, and this is my final thought, okay? So being successful is like going up a stair, okay? So yeah, you can be lucky, like the guy from Minecraft, and jump like 10 steps and just be here in a second, okay? That's uncommon. Typically what's gonna happen is that you'll go one step, another step, another step, another step. So what you need to think is, for your small app, okay, what does success look like? You know what? It doesn't need to set the world on fire. It just needs to begin generating a little bit of revenue so that you can afford to do a second product, and then a third one, and then a fourth product. Think about this. The first game I did that broke over 1 million units sold was my game number 4. Okay, my first 3 games were just like rehearsal, so to say. It was game 4. My studio was founded, the first studio I had was founded in 2003, and my first hit came in 2008. Okay, things take time. Be patient. Keep going. The only way to fail is if you quit. Because if you're accumulating know-how, don't worry. At some point you'll make it. So just think about, okay, for this first product, how do we get a little bit of audience? Okay. So again, hey, thank you so much. Thank you so much, of course, to the Ministry of Maharashtra for inviting me. At DNEG, we are going to be hiring people for the gaming division. Okay, so if you are a Unreal developer, so we're working on Unreal Engine 5, senior to lead profiles, hit me up. Well, my email was there, but again, it's danny@transmedia.one. That's my email. And if you want the presentation, yeah, hit me out as well, and I will share it with you right away. And I'm going to be here hanging around looking at the games. So, just hit me up. I'm a nice guy. Okay? Thank you so much.